The sky above Earth went dark without warning. Not a cloud, not a shadow from the moon, just a sudden blackness that swallowed the sun. People looked up in confusion. Streets filled with panic. Cars stopped. Planes were grounded. Every electronic device, every screen, every communication channel went dead at once. It was as if the world itself had taken a deep breath and gone silent. In New York, Dr. Lena Carter ran through the crowded streets, her heart pounding. The city that never slept was frozen in fear. She was a scientist, one of the few who had spent years studying strange energy signals coming from space. Signals that no one else seemed to notice. But today, Lena felt a chill unlike anything she had ever known. Something was very wrong. She reached the lab, hoping that her backup generators would still work. They didn't. Not a single light flickered on. The computers were dead. Only a strange, low hum filled the air, a sound that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic in London, a young engineer named Tom Reyes stared at his dead console. He had been testing a satellite network when the blackout struck. All communication satellites went silent at the exact same moment. For a few minutes, he thought it was a glitch. Then he realized every country, every city, every system was down. Something was controlling everything, and humanity had no idea. Lena and Tom were not alone in their confusion. People all over the world were screaming, running, and searching for answers. Governments sent emergency messages that never arrived. Military systems shut down mid-operation. Planes were stranded in the sky. Ships lost contact with the coast. The world was trapped in a silent nightmare. In her lab, Lena noticed a faint light blinking on an old, almost forgotten device. It was an emergency radio transmitter she had built years ago, before the world relied entirely on satellites and networks. The signal was weak, crackling with static, but it was alive. She pressed the switch and heard something strange, a voice, not human, speaking in patterns she could barely understand. "Their time is ending, the last moment of choice," it said. Lena froze. The words made no sense. Who, or what, was speaking? She had always feared aliens might exist, but she never thought she would hear their voice. She knew humanity was not ready for this. She knew she had to warn someone, but all networks were down. Tom, in London, noticed something similar on his satellite systems. Strange, coded signals were moving through the dead networks. They were not random. They were instructions. Someone, or something, was sending messages to control machines, to take power, to dominate human technology. He realized this was bigger than a blackout. It was an invasion of minds, a silent war fought without weapons. Back in New York, Lena decided to leave the lab. She needed to see the world, to understand the scale of the chaos. The streets were a mix of fear and anger. People tried to restart their devices, shouting at screens that would not respond. Emergency services moved blindly, trying to help but lost without guidance. Somewhere in the city, a child cried, and a dog howled, both sounding tiny against the immense, quiet threat pressing down on the planet. That night, Lena climbed to the roof of her building. The city lights were gone. The stars shone brighter than she had ever seen, but they were cold, distant, indifferent. And then she saw it, a shadow moving across the sky, faster than any plane, smoother than any satellite. A dark shape that seemed alive, almost intelligent, tracing lines across the night. Tom, thousands of miles away, had seen the same thing. A massive object gliding silently over the world, invisible to most, but leaving traces in the signals it touched. Humanity had never faced anything like this. Not an army, not a storm, not a disease. Something intelligent was out there, reshaping Earth without firing a single weapon. By morning, Lena found a small group of survivors in the city. They were scientists, engineers, ordinary people who had refused to panic. Together, they began piecing together what little they knew. The signals, the patterns, the strange hum, they all pointed to one terrifying conclusion: Earth was being controlled from outside. Someone, or something, was watching humanity, testing humanity, deciding its fate. The first whispers of resistance started to form. People called out theories, shared observations, tried to understand the enemy. But every attempt to fight back failed. The machines would not obey. Communications were useless. And the shadow in the sky, it was always there, reminding them that nothing on Earth was truly free anymore. Late that evening, Lena returned to her lab. The weak radio signal was stronger now, clearer. And then she heard the words again, louder, more urgent. Do not interfere. Do not resist. Or humanity will end. Her blood ran cold. She realized she was hearing a warning, and a challenge. The very survival of Earth depended on understanding what these beings wanted, why they were controlling everything, and whether humans could find a way to fight back. And then the signal went silent. Lena sat in the darkness, the hum still in the background, and knew one terrifying truth. Earth had gone silent, but the watchers were awake, patient, and watching. Humanity had no time to waste. The first move had been made, but by whom? Somewhere in the shadows above the planet, something moved, thinking, calculating, waiting. And humanity, for the first time in history, realized it might not be the most powerful species in the universe after all. The morning after the blackout, the streets were still empty, save for the few brave or desperate souls moving cautiously. Lena Carter and her small group of survivors knew they had to act quickly. They had no idea how long the silence would last, or what the shadow above the planet was planning next. Every moment felt like walking on the edge of a knife. Lena examined the weak radio signals again. Each time the device picked up a message, it was brief, almost teasing. Fragments of words, patterns that seemed like instructions. But instructions for whom? Humans or machines? She didn't know. All she knew was that if she could decipher them, it might give humanity a chance to survive. Tom Reyes had not given up either. He had found a small, hidden satellite station in the English countryside, long abandoned by the government. The station systems were offline, but some older machines, disconnected from modern networks, still worked. As he studied them, he noticed the same strange coded signals Lena had picked up in New York. The signals seemed to form a map, a set of coordinates, perhaps pointing to something hidden, or a trap. Meanwhile, across the globe, similar groups of survivors were forming. Engineers, scientists, soldiers, and ordinary citizens were banding together. They were learning quickly that nothing they knew about technology or society applied anymore. The world had changed overnight. Humanity's dominance over machines was gone. Every city, every factory, every communication hub could now be controlled remotely. And the shadow above Earth? It was always watching, silent and patient. In New York, Lena decided to risk leaving the city to follow the signal. She knew it might be dangerous, but staying put would do nothing. Her team packed essentials, food, water, and portable power sources for their old machines. The hum in the air was constant now, vibrating through the buildings, through the streets, through their bones. It was like the planet itself was alive, but it wasn't. As they traveled, strange things began happening. Traffic lights would flicker on for a moment, only to shut off again. Street signs moved as if rearranged by invisible hands. Machines would start and stop at random, displaying cryptic messages Lena couldn't understand. The world was alive, but it was not human. Tom, following the map in England, noticed the signals were converging. Multiple transmissions from around the globe seemed to point to one location. A place humans had rarely explored, deep underground, shielded from satellites and sensors. He realized it was likely the origin of the control, or a key to understanding it. On the way to this location, Lena's team encountered other survivors. Many were frightened, some hostile. People were exhausted, hungry, and confused. The blackout had lasted long enough to shatter their patience. But Lena spoke to them calmly, using simple logic and reason. She explained that the signals were not random, that someone or something was guiding them toward understanding. Slowly, more people joined her group, sharing knowledge and tools. That night, they camped near an abandoned subway tunnel. Lena tried to decode the messages again. The radio crackled with faint signals, almost whispering. Suddenly, a new pattern appeared. The words were clearer this time. Do not trust the surface. Darkness reveals the truth. The words sent a chill through her. Darkness. Truth. What were they hiding, and why did the voice sound so sure of itself? Lena realized the signals were trying to manipulate her, but she had no choice. She had to follow them if humanity wanted a chance. In London, Tom finally decoded part of the message. It wasn't just a map. It was a test. The beings controlling Earth were observing humanity's reactions. Every move, every choice, every attempt to resist or follow their instructions was being recorded. And according to the pattern, most humans were failing. The world had gone silent because it was being judged. Lena's group reached the edge of a forest outside the city. The trees were unnaturally still. Even the wind seemed to avoid this place. And then they saw them, machines they had never seen before, scattered among the roots, blinking with lights that pulsed like hearts. The machines were silent but seemed alive. Some had the shape of insects, others like small animals, but none were natural. The shadow above the sky had sent them. They were scouts, observers, maybe even hunters. Fear surged through the group. But Lena stepped forward. She remembered the voice. Darkness reveals the truth. Maybe these machines were not just enemies. They were clues. Carefully, she examined one. It hummed softly, as if acknowledging her presence. Then, unexpectedly, it projected an image into the air. A star system far beyond the solar system, with a planet that glowed strangely. The machines were showing her something, something humanity needed to see. Tom, following his map, was approaching a similar revelation. The pattern led him to a hidden underground chamber. Inside, he found machines similar to the ones Lena saw. They seemed connected to a larger network, possibly controlling entire cities. And then he heard a whisper, soft and cold. Humanity is weak, yet curious. We will see if you survive. Lena and Tom, separated by continents, realized the same truth. The beings controlling Earth were intelligent, observing, and testing humanity. Every step forward was dangerous, every wrong move fatal. But there was hope, hidden in the signals, in the machines, in the darkness itself. By the end of the second day, Lena's group decided to follow the projected star system. They didn't know why it mattered, only that it felt important. Humanity's survival depended on understanding this alien intelligence, on learning their rules before it was too late. And somewhere high above the planet, the shadow watched silently, waiting for humanity's next move. Lena's group moved through the forest with caution, following the faint projection of the distant star system that floated in the air like a ghostly map. The machines scattered among the roots blinked in silent acknowledgement as if guiding them. Every step was tense, the air thick with fear and anticipation. They had no weapons that could challenge what they didn't fully understand. All they had was curiosity, and maybe that was their greatest advantage. Tom, thousands of miles away in the English countryside, had reached the underground chamber. The walls were lined with strange machinery, glowing faintly in colors that didn't exist in nature. He could feel the machines observing him, each movement tracked. He realized that they were not just tools, they were intelligent. He had read about AI capable of learning, but this felt different. These machines were ancient, patient, and deliberate. Back in New York, Lena paused at a clearing. The machines formed a circle around her and her group, humming softly. Suddenly, a low vibration shook the ground. From the shadows, something emerged. Not one machine but hundreds, moving as a single entity. They swirled around her like a living storm of metal and light. The air felt heavy, charged with something she could not name. The projection of the star system expanded, revealing a path, a journey they were supposed to take. Her heart pounded. "We have to follow it," she said, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her chest. The group nodded. They had no other choice. Each step forward felt like walking into the unknown, yet they moved together, united by the silent hum of the machines. Tom's hands shook as he interacted with the machines in the chamber. He had managed to access a part of their memory. Holographic images flickered around him, showing events that had happened long before humanity's rise. Entire civilizations, planets, and stars appeared and disappeared. He understood then. These beings had been observing life across the universe for eons. They were not new. They had tested others before, and now humanity was under scrutiny. Meanwhile, Lena's group reached the edge of a valley. The machines paused, forming a barrier. She looked up and saw the shadow in the sky again, gliding silently, watching. Then, a new signal arrived on her portable device. It was clearer than anything before. Only the curious may survive. Only the brave may learn. The words sent a thrill through her veins. This was not just survival. This was a test. A test of mind, courage, and will. The group pressed forward, moving carefully through the valley. They discovered a strange energy field that blocked all electronics. Even their portable devices flickered and went dead when they crossed it. Lena realized they would have to rely on intuition and observation, not machines, not technology, not any familiar advantage. Tom, deep underground, began to piece together the machine's instructions. The signals pointed toward a device hidden within the chamber, a machine unlike the others, shaped like a small tower. It pulsed with an inner light, and as Tom approached, he heard whispers. Touch. Learn. Choose. The instructions were simple but terrifying. He hesitated, realizing that one wrong action could destroy him, or worse, send a signal to the beings controlling Earth. Back in the valley, Lena's team stumbled upon a cave entrance. Strange markings glowed faintly on the walls, like the machines had drawn them with light. She traced the lines with her finger, feeling a vibration that resonated through her bones. It was a message, or perhaps a test. She closed her eyes and listened to the hum around her. Slowly, the lines began to form a pattern, revealing a symbol she had never seen before, but somehow recognized. It was a key, a path, a warning. Tom finally reached out to touch the tower. The pulsing light enveloped him, filling his mind with visions. He saw Earth from space, silent, fragile, and watched by eyes that had seen the birth of stars. He felt the intelligence probing him, testing him. The choices he made would determine not only his fate but the future of humanity. Fear gripped him, but curiosity drove him forward. He remembered the words Lena had received. Only the curious may survive. In the forest valley, Lena's group followed the glowing symbol deeper into the cave. The path twisted and turned, leading them underground. They found a chamber similar to Tom's, filled with machines and glowing patterns. A strange energy filled the air, pressing on their minds, demanding understanding. Lena felt her thoughts pulled outward, examined, and weighed. She realized that the beings controlling Earth were not just testing humans, they were teaching. But the lesson was dangerous, and every wrong choice carried a cost. Suddenly, the cave shook violently. Machines swirled around them, forming shapes that mimicked human faces, alien creatures, and strange geometries. The shadow above the sky seemed to move in response, its presence felt even underground. Lena's group held hands, relying on each other as the machines created illusions and tests. Every fear, every doubt, every hope was amplified. The beings were testing not just their intelligence, but their courage and unity. Tom, still alone, felt a surge of understanding. The machines were not enemies, they were guides, pushing humanity toward awareness, toward evolution. But the process was brutal, and failure meant extinction. He knew he had to reach Lena and the others. He had to combine knowledge with courage. At the center of Lena's chamber, a final machine pulsed with light. It projected an image of Earth, the shadow, and the star system they had been guided toward. The being's message was clear: humanity was being observed, and only those who could learn from the test would survive the next phase. The hum in the air intensified. Lena took a deep breath and stepped forward, reaching out toward the machine. The light engulfed her, visions filling her mind. Stars, civilizations, choices, and consequences. The beings were patient, but time was limited. Humanity had been tested once, but the real challenge was just beginning. Above Earth, the shadow paused. Its sensors scanned the planet, noting every movement, every decision. It had awakened curiosity, and curiosity was dangerous. And somewhere, deep underground and across oceans, humanity realized its first taste of true cosmic scrutiny. The Watchers were not hostile yet, but they were waiting, watching, judging, and the path to survival had only just begun. Lena's mind was buzzing with visions. The machine's light had shown her countless worlds, civilizations that had risen and fallen, and choices that had led to destruction or survival. She knew now that Earth was not alone in the universe. It had never been alone. Something watched humanity, testing them silently, judging their every move. But why? And what did it want from them? Her group was shaken but determined. They had seen the patterns, felt the test, and survived so far. Every member understood that their next step was crucial. The machines surrounding them pulsed with energy, waiting for action. Lena realized they were not only observers, they were catalysts. The beings controlling Earth wanted humans to learn, to adapt, to evolve. Far away, Tom studied the tower's projections. Each symbol, each pulse, was a puzzle. He noticed something new. The signals were converging on a single location deep in the Atlantic Ocean. Lena's cave and his underground chamber were just the beginning. The final test, it seemed, awaited humanity in the ocean depths. He knew reaching it would be perilous, but he had no choice. The survival of the species depended on him. Meanwhile, Lena's group began their journey out of the forest valley. Strange phenomena followed them, rivers that glowed faintly in moonlight, animals moving in unnatural patterns, even the wind seemed to guide or block their path. Every moment felt like the world itself was alive, watching, shaping their path. The shadow in the sky loomed constantly, a silent sentinel, reminding them that nothing on Earth was untouched by these unseen beings. As they traveled, they encountered other groups of survivors. Some were friendly, offering knowledge, food, and equipment. Others were suspicious, fearful of traps, convinced the machines were hunting them. Lena spoke with calm authority, showing that cooperation was the only way forward. Slowly, more people joined her group, increasing their numbers and their collective understanding. But each new person added tension. The more humans involved, the greater the test. Tom, following the map, finally reached the edge of the Atlantic coast. The waves were restless, glowing faintly as if charged with energy. According to the signals, the next step required entering the ocean. Not just the surface. Deep below, where humans had never ventured without risk. He prepared small submersibles, drawing on old technology abandoned by modern humanity. The test demanded courage, precision, and trust in intuition over machines. Back in the valley, Lena's group discovered a cliffside overlooking the ocean. From there, the strange hum intensified. Machines scattered among the rocks pulsed in unison, creating a faint vibration that ran through the ground and air. Lena realized that the journey was almost complete. The path the machines had led them on was converging here, at the water's edge. And the projection of the star system flickered again, this time highlighting a single point far below the waves. Night fell, and the shadow above the sky drifted closer. It seemed to wait, observing how humanity would respond. Lena's group had faced fear before, but now it was multiplied by the unknown depths below. She knew that entering the ocean was more than physical, it was symbolic. Humanity had to confront not just the beings watching them, but their own limitations. Tom and Lena finally made contact via faint radio signals. The static was strong, but they shared the same realization. The ocean held the final stage of this test. Humans had been observed, guided, and prodded toward this moment. The beings controlling Earth wanted to see if humans could work together, face danger, and adapt to situations they had never experienced. The next morning, Lena's group descended toward the water in small boats. The ocean seemed alive, glowing faintly, waves moving unnaturally, as if guiding them toward a specific path. The air was electric with tension, every sound amplified, every shadow suspicious. The machines from the forest had not followed. They had stopped at the cliff, but the hum persisted, filling the sky and sea, a reminder that humanity was being observed. Underwater, Tom piloted his submersible, following the glowing coordinates. Strange creatures, perhaps influenced by the controlling beings, swam past, their movements unnatural yet mesmerizing. Every second felt like a test of nerves and perception. One wrong maneuver could end the mission, and possibly the lives of everyone depending on them. Lena's team, above, watched as light beams from the water indicated where the submersibles should go. They could see Tom's progress, but they also knew that the ocean itself was a puzzle. Currents shifted unpredictably, and strange formations beneath the surface glowed faintly, creating illusions that could mislead even the most careful navigator. Suddenly, a deep rumble shook the water. From the depths rose a massive structure, shaped like a pyramid but smooth, alien, and pulsing with light. The shadow above the sky seemed to pause in recognition. Lena and Tom realized that they had reached the threshold of the final test, a place where humanity's courage, intelligence, and curiosity would be pushed to the limit. The machines scattered around the ocean glowed brighter, forming patterns that hinted at the entrance. Lena took a deep breath and nodded to her team. They had come this far, guided by signals, intuition, and sheer will. Now, they would have to descend into the unknown together. And as the shadow drifted silently above, the watchers waited. Humanity's next choices would determine not just survival, but the future of life on Earth. Lena's team stood at the edge of the glowing ocean, staring down at the massive alien pyramid that rose from the depths. Its surface shimmered with a strange energy, pulsing in time with the hum that had followed them since the blackout. Lena's heart pounded. Every instinct screamed danger, but she also knew that turning back was not an option. Humanity had been guided here for a reason, and whatever awaited them below could determine the fate of the entire species. Tom, in his submersible, was already approaching the pyramid. The water around him glowed faintly, illuminating creatures that moved in impossible ways. Some seemed mechanical, others organic, but all were connected to the alien presence that had taken control of Earth. Tom felt eyes on him, though he could see nothing. The submersible's instruments went haywire, spinning wildly as the energy from the structure interfered with electronics. He had to rely entirely on skill, instinct, and courage. Above the surface, Lena's group prepared to enter the water. They carried only the essentials: oxygen tanks, light sources, and tools for survival. Every face reflected fear and determination. The hum intensified, vibrating through the boats, the waves, even their bones. Lena realized the beings watching them did not just want obedience, they wanted to see how humans would act under pressure, how they would cooperate, and whether they could adapt to impossible challenges. As the team descended, strange symbols floated in the water like holograms, guiding them toward the pyramid's entrance. The deeper they went, the more alien the surroundings became. Rocks glowed with energy, and currents shifted unpredictably. Shadows danced in unnatural ways, creating illusions that tested their perception. Every step felt like a puzzle, every decision a test. Tom reached the base of the pyramid first. The entrance was a smooth, glowing surface, impossible to touch without triggering some unknown effect. Slowly, carefully, he traced a path indicated by the symbols. As he did, the light pulsed in recognition, opening a narrow passage. He entered, feeling the weight of countless eyes observing him. Inside, the pyramid was vast. Light came from no obvious source, and the walls seemed alive, shifting slightly as if breathing. Machines hovered in mid-air, silent but attentive, their movements precise and deliberate. Tom could sense intelligence in everything around him, a presence that was not hostile, but immensely powerful. Above, Lena and her group reached the entrance. She followed the symbols carefully, guiding her team. Each person was tested as they moved forward. Fear, doubt, and instinct clashed constantly. One wrong step, and the pyramid might reject them entirely, or worse, send a warning to the beings controlling Earth. The water around them glowed brighter, illuminating strange carvings and patterns on the walls. Lena realized that these were instructions, puzzles meant to challenge human perception and reasoning. Tom reached the inner chamber first. The space was enormous, filled with energy fields, hovering platforms, and machines that seemed to anticipate every action he took. At the center was a pedestal with a glowing sphere. As he approached, the sphere projected visions: the rise and fall of civilizations, the choices of countless intelligent species, and the consequences of failure. He understood then that this was not just a test, it was a lesson. The beings controlling Earth were teaching humanity how to survive, evolve, and think beyond the limits of their planet. Lena's team followed quickly behind. The pyramid seemed to recognize them, adjusting the challenges to their abilities. Machines moved to guide, not hinder, and the symbols shifted to reveal the next step. But the tests were intense. One member panicked, nearly triggering an energy field that could have harmed them all. Lena calmed them, reminding everyone to focus, to trust their instincts, and to work as one. The sphere projected another vision, this time of Earth. The shadow in the sky loomed above, and the machines connected to the planet moved in precise patterns, controlling cities, oceans, and even the air itself. The message was clear: humanity was being observed constantly. Every choice mattered. Every action had consequences. The beings controlling Earth were not enemies, but they demanded understanding, courage, and intelligence. Tom reached out and touched the sphere. Knowledge flooded his mind: patterns of energy that controlled machines, subtle manipulations of matter, and the rules governing the beings' observations. He realized that the tests so far were only preparation. Humanity had survived the first challenges, but the next phase would demand more: creativity, strategy, and moral judgment. Failure would not just be personal, it could end life on Earth as they knew it. Lena stepped forward, touching the sphere after Tom. The visions combined for the first time, showing the two continents, the two teams, and the network of humans striving to understand the test. The beings had connected them through space and technology, observing cooperation, communication, and insight. Lena felt their presence as a weight, pressing on her mind, but also as a challenge, pushing her to think, act, and lead. Suddenly, the pyramid trembled. The water around it roared. The shadow in the sky shifted, closer than ever before. Lena realized that the Watchers were testing patience as well as courage. Time was a factor. They could not linger, hesitate, or doubt. They had to act decisively. The sphere pulsed brighter, and Lena heard a clear thought in her mind, not spoken aloud. Decide. Choose. Humanity must prove it can guide its own fate. Fear gripped her, but determination surged stronger. Every instinct told her to run, to hide, to escape the unknown. But the test demanded bravery. Lena glanced at her team, at Tom, and knew that survival depended on unity, intelligence, and courage. The next choice would not just define them, it could define the future of humanity itself. And somewhere above, the shadow paused, its sensors scanning every move. Humanity had survived so far, but the real trial was only beginning. The pyramid trembled as Lena and Tom stood at the glowing sphere. The air was thick with energy, pulsing through their bodies, through the water, and up to the surface. The shadow above the planet loomed larger than ever, silent, patient, waiting. The Watchers had seen everything. Every choice humanity had made, every act of courage, every moment of doubt, it was all recorded, analyzed, weighed. Now, it was time for the final test. The sphere projected Earth, cities frozen, oceans glowing with alien energy. Machines moved in precise patterns, controlling every system. Humanity had been powerless against this control, but now the Watchers were asking one question: could humans rise above fear, adapt, and choose their own destiny? Lena felt the weight of the question pressing on her mind. She looked at Tom and their teams, spread across continents, all facing similar challenges. The vision made her heart race. One wrong decision here, one mistake in judgment, could doom humanity entirely. Yet the sphere pulsed softly, almost encouragingly, as if inviting them to act. The first step was clear: cooperation. Lena guided her team to coordinate with Tom and the others. Using simple hand signals, light codes, and intuition, they began to move the machines inside the pyramid. Each motion had to be precise, each decision deliberate. The sphere showed consequences in real time: Paths that led to failure glowed red, paths that led to progress glowed gold. The shadow above Earth shifted, reacting to every action. Lena realized that it was not just observing, they were influencing, testing patience, focus and unity. The machines around the pyramid began to pulse faster, almost impatiently, urging humanity to think, to act, to evolve. Lena's team synchronized with Tom's from across the globe, moving in unison, learning from the sphere, communicating without words, understanding the subtle logic of the Watchers. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time seemed meaningless inside the pyramid. Each correct decision illuminated new parts of the structure, revealing deeper puzzles, more complex challenges. Fear threatened to paralyze them, but Lena and Tom reminded everyone to trust themselves, to trust each other. Humanity's greatest strength was not technology, not weapons, but their ability to adapt, think, and collaborate. Finally, the sphere projected a single pathway, the culmination of all tests. Lena's team understood, they had reached the last challenge. The path led upward, toward the water's surface, toward the stars. The shadow above the planet moved closer, its presence almost tangible, like a giant hand hovering over Earth. The Watchers were ready to deliver judgment. Lena stepped forward, placing her hand on the sphere. A wave of energy surged through her mind. She saw visions of humans making choices in impossible situations, saving others, risking themselves, learning, thinking. Every act of courage shone brightly. And then she saw failure, the cost of fear, hesitation, selfishness. She realized that the Watchers were not just testing survival, they were teaching humanity about itself. Tom joined her, and together they reached toward the final pattern projected by the sphere. Their minds synced with each other and the teams around the world. They adjusted, solved, and coordinated. Slowly, the glowing pyramid began to shift, transforming from a static structure into a radiant beacon pointing upward, toward the stars. The shadow above Earth pulsed, acknowledging humanity's progress. And then it happened. The hum that had filled the planet for days exploded into sound, not painful, but awe-inspiring. Lights returned to the cities, machines obeyed their human operators again, and communication networks flickered back to life. Humanity had passed the first test. They had proven curiosity, courage, and intelligence. Yet the Watchers were not done. A message filled the minds of all humans who had followed the signals. Humanity is ready, but only if it chooses to be. Your evolution is your choice. Your unity is your strength. Never forget that. The path to the stars awaits those who dare. The shadow above Earth slowly retreated, disappearing beyond the atmosphere, leaving only the calm of the night sky and the hum of a recovering planet. Lena and Tom surfaced from their pyramid challenge, exhausted, exhilarated, and changed. They looked at each other and smiled, knowing humanity had faced a threat greater than any war, disaster, or disease, and survived through intellect, courage, and cooperation. Across the globe, similar scenes unfolded. Humans reunited, shared knowledge, and marveled at the machines and signals that had guided them. For the first time, humanity understood that their dominance over Earth was fragile, but their potential was limitless. They were no longer just survivors, they were learners, explorers, and future architects of a world watched by eyes older than the stars. Lena gazed at the horizon, the sun rising over the recovering oceans. She could still feel the pulse of the pyramid beneath the waves, the echo of the shadow above, and the faint whispers of the Watchers. Humanity had passed the first trial, but this was only the beginning. The universe was vast, filled with dangers and wonders, and now humans had proof they could rise to any challenge. Tom joined her on the cliffside, looking at the glowing oceans below. "We did it," he said softly. "No," Lena replied, smiling. "We survived. But now, we have a choice. The real journey begins." And somewhere, far beyond Earth, the Watchers observed silently, knowing that humanity had the potential to become something extraordinary, or to falter under its own fear. But for now, Earth was alive again, buzzing with life, curiosity, and the first spark of true independence. Humanity had faced the unknown, and had not only survived but grown stronger. The silence was gone. Earth was awake. And for the first time, humans looked at the stars and felt ready.